Hello.
Hello.
Hi guys, my name is Shivali and I'm going to be hosting the workshop. We'll get started in just a second as soon as I can share
Yeah.
the screen. Maybe everyone can drop where they're watching from in the chat. I'm from the Bay Area, like 40 minutes away from San Francisco, really close to Stanford and Berkeley. Cool, cool, cool. Anyone else want to share? Fremont, oh my god, you're so close to me. I'm from Milpitas, LA. It's probably so hot there right now. It's so hot in Milpitas. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to ask for hosting permissions from. Oh yeah, because it's like 9:30 for you guys. Well, thank you for your dedication for coming to the workshop at night. I'll maybe just give it like one more minute and then we can get started. But yeah, if you guys ever have any questions during the workshop, you can just drop them in the chat. I get to see the chat when I'm presenting, so just leave it there. And yeah, I think I'm just gonna start presenting my screen. Okay. Chat. All right. Okay, can everyone hear me and see my screen? Yes. So I don't know why it's not letting me see the chat anymore, but I will look over the chat at the end of the webinar. So hi guys, my name is Shivali, and today I'm going to be doing a quick presentation on how I started a 501c3 nonprofit in high school. I'm a rising high school senior from the Bay Area, and I'm the founder and executive director of a nonprofit called Cool Genius. We're a 501c3 that strives to connect, inspire, and empower girls in STEM through quarterly magazine issues, virtual events, and primarily our social media content. Since December of 2018, we've reached over 470,000 people from 46 states and 75 countries, primarily through our social media and virtual events like our annual conference on July 5th, which had around 2,200 attendees. I'm also currently interning at Verizon, and I did research at ASU, so University of Arizona, in May. So if you ever have any questions about that, you can email me at, I'll just I put my email in the Discord thing for like my workshop. So all my contact information is there. But if you ever want to talk about getting internships, you can just shoot me an email there, or if you have any follow-up questions. So let's dive into it. Why did I even want to start this nonprofit? I think that telling you guys my story will just assist you all in, understanding how to run a successful nonprofit or start something from the ground up. So for me, despite living in the heart of Silicon Valley, I went to a school that wasn't necessarily very techy in that, we got our first CS class for the first time this year. Whereas in comparison to other schools, they've had like 7 CS classes that they've offered. And so my school really didn't have a lot of things to do if you were interested in engineering or technology. And for me, even though, especially because of the area that I lived in California, I didn't have a lot of people I knew who were interested in tech. Like I knew one girl who was interested in CS, but she's graduated. And so I'm kind of the only one I know now who like is a girl. And so I dove headfirst into the tech scene in the Bay Area during my sophomore year by attending a lot of hackathons like this. Um, and I didn't have anyone to go to these events with, so I would always go solo and try to find people to join teams with. And like typical hackathons, I'd work with these people for like 12 hours on a project, and then that connection that we had would just stop at us following each other on Instagram. And I wanted to have like a long lasting network of people that I could reach out to about this stuff, since my friends weren't really interested in tech or engineering or business or entrepreneurship. And that made it difficult a lot more difficult to like find things like internship opportunities and learning how to code. So like every average high school student, I went to Google when, I was trying to solve this problem. And so I found out about an organization called Built by Girls. If you're a girl interested in tech, I highly recommend looking them up on Instagram and joining their mentorship program. It's amazing. I personally love it. And I joined the Built by Girls Slack, which has around like 2,000 girls interested in computer science and entrepreneurship from like all over the world. And it's really, really amazing network. And like I said on the slide, it really changed my life because I have so many people who had similar interests in me. They looked like me. And it was really refreshing to see that like I wasn't the only one who was having the same problems. And a lot of people I met on this Slack, I continue to have conversations with them. Every single day. And like some of them I've like scheduled like boba chats with, like in the incoming fall if when they can come to California. And so like it's really, really awesome. And I think that, networking allowed me to really find people that I loved to talk to and were also interested in STEM. But, realizing the power of like Slack communities really made me understand that like, there isn't necessarily a platform where people from all over the world can connect together to work on a project. Even when coronavirus wasn't a thing, like there weren't a lot of virtual things where you could do that. And so that's why, I wanted to start Girl Genius. And that's how I got to step zero, which is what is an organization? Now, I know on the surface level that seems really, really easy to like answer, but in my opinion, an organization is a group of people aiming to solve a problem. The ultimate goal of the organization should be to create the most amount of impact as possible towards solving this problem to the best of your ability. However, I think that the fact that I'm doing a 501c3 workshop, I do have to give this disclaimer that you have to have a genuine interest to solve. At its core, that's what makes a successful nonprofit or starting an organization. If you genuinely don't want to like actually help people and you're just doing this for apps, you're not going to be able to make as great of an impact. Like, the way that I think about extracurricular activities is like playing Mario Kart. Like when I was a kid, I would come home every day and I would play Mario Kart like all day because I wanted to. And no one was telling me like, Shwali, this is your homework assignment to play Mario Kart for 30 minutes a day. Like it was something that I just wanted to do. And when you have a genuine interest to do something, you're more inclined to spend time on it. It's not going to feel like work, and you just are more able to like be dedicated towards making an impact happen. So please do not start something for the sake of college apps because, Girl Genius does take up like, 17 hours like per week. But like, it doesn't feel like work to me because honestly, I love working on it. And so, that is something to keep in mind. I also recommend keeping in mind that, if there is something you're looking for, first and foremost, do your research to see if there's an existing organization because, there are so many organizations that like, teach kids how to code. But if they all came together, the resources would be so much more united rather than split. So how do you even create an organization? Well, step one is crafting a mission statement by identifying your problem. The way that I decided my problem was really thinking about the problems that I faced and also, the problems in my community. There wasn't a lot of STEM representation in the small town I was from, and there wasn't a lot that, the high schools, the middle schools, and even the elementary schools were doing about that. A really important piece of like advice that I give to a lot of people who I have like coffee chats with about starting nonprofits is like imagine yourself like coming back to high school as a freshman. Like what club would you join? Because like if this existed when I was a high school freshman, I would have joined this in a heartbeat. And so, I think that what's interesting about high school student like run organizations, that sometimes we're our own consumer or like target audience, and so that could really help you craft like a mission statement. I think that when identifying your problem, you want to make sure that it's something that you are passionate about, something that you see yourself constantly engaging with, whether it's through social media, whether it's through informing yourself about it, through, reading things online, whether like it's an actual activity that you do. Like, you have to be directly involved in it to like really understand the extent of what is going on. I think that the biggest thing that a lot of people do wrong when they're crafting a problem is, again, not doing their research and understanding that like if there is an organization that is doing the exact same thing you are, like, you creating an organization is not a bad thing, but it's reducing the amount of resources that can go to an organization that was already existing. And like, I think that a lot of people don't realize the importance of like joining an organization that solves a mission that you're passionate about, because they've already have a leverage of social media. They've built that platform for you, and you're able to make a lot more impact on people in comparison to starting something new. But now that you've identified your problem, it's time to talk about your solution. How are you going to tackle this problem? And for me personally, I think that when you're trying to create a nonprofit, the first thing you should think of, what is the easiest way that you as a high school student could contribute towards solving this problem? Because I hate to break it to you, you will never be able to solve this problem in entirety. For example, there's so many organizations, there's probably like over 1 million girls in STEM organizations, right? But all of us kind of do it in different ways. And so everyone's interpretation of solving a problem is very different. And I think that that's what makes organizations stand out. And I think that, when you're thinking about it, about a solution, pick 1 to 2 solutions that go in hand with your mission statement. The reason why I say this is because I've been a part of so many like failed nonprofits that like, they're like, oh yeah, join my nonprofit, it's so cool. And then we join and they have like 18 teams on like how they're going to solve this problem. Pick 1 to 2 mediums and then expand. You want to make sure you're doing something really well first before moving on to another project. So for me, creating the magazine issues was the best way to initially solve the problem, because there was not really a resource where like I could go and read something by high school girls in STEM for high school girls in STEM. Like, that just like did not exist. And I found that like, there were so many like what's it called? Oh, I think someone said something in the chat. Oh, are there people wanting to join? I don't think I can add people to the waiting room. Can I? Oh my god, yes I can. Thank you for that. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
There are so many holes in this country. A law of averages would say that at least I'd find some gold.
Okay, cool. All right, so for me, the magazine was the easiest way to solve it, because, I would find these
No
articles.
pets, working dogs, and hard decisions have to be made. If this is the hardest decision we ever have to make, then you can consider us lucky.
It's not.
You see spirit in something loving.
There. And so that was the easiest way for me to do this, because there wasn't a central location. There were a lot of Medium articles about like breaking into tech, breaking into like business as a high school student, but there wasn't a central location. And then slowly, we found out that doing things like Instagram takeovers on our platform, like we just finished up like a week of like college week where we had over 10 takeovers by 10 aspiring women in STEAM on our platform. And that was really, really critical towards spreading our message of like empowering girls in STEM, because that's literally 24 hours of mentorship where you can easily talk to someone about, who's going in a similar career path that you're interested in. And, that's one of the ways that we solve their problems. However, we first started with our magazine and our YouTube channel, and we've slowly expanded from there. And so, like I said before, like, make sure you pick 1 to 2 mediums to focus on first, do those really well, and then move on. Step 3 is forming your team. I think all of you guys know that like forming your team is so important towards creating a nonprofit organization. So how did I form my team? Well, I think that the first thing that I did isn't necessarily very applicable to our situation right now because of coronavirus. And what I did was I went to a lot of like female empowerment and like STEM clubs at my high school. So like robotics, CS club, DECA, like MedPath, like a lot of like science Olympiad. And I went to these club meetings and I pitched for like 5 minutes. And I'd be like, hey, my name is Shivali. This is my nonprofit. I am looking for people to join my team. And from that, I got around 15 people. But the main way that I got people to join my team was through social media. This is I would say, the most exclusive way that we get people to join our team now. So, for example, this past issue to join our team this summer, we got over 412 applications to join our team, and 95% of them were from Instagram. And so, definitely leveraging the power of social media. I'll be talking a lot about that in the end. But that was also a really great way. Posting on things like Round Peer, different Slack groups, and Discords allowed it to just automatically get it to a lot of people and see that this was an organization I was starting. I also recommend taking a tip out of a lot of hackathons books, which is sending emails to a lot of schools in your area. This is something that we do so that people can just like learn about it really easily, because it just goes to so many people at so many schools. And so definitely crafting that email list, although it takes time, it's definitely worth it. Okay, so to continue to talk about teams, I am a firm believer that you are truly as good as your team. And here are the 3 key lessons that I've learned from running a team over the past year and a half. The first thing is that your best friend should not always be your directors. I don't think this is said enough. Like, like for me, I'll reference my Girls Who Code story. I used to run a Girls Who Code club at my high school. And, because like there was like no girls interested in like CS at my high school. And so I automatically just got like one of my closest friends to be an officer. And I noticed that it's a lot harder to be assertive and dominating and like, I guess, like be a leader to people who you're really close friends with, because you don't want to sacrifice the friendship, but at the same time, you do want to make stuff happen. And so I noticed that a lot of people, if you're really close to them, they can abuse the fact that they are your friend and that you wouldn't remove them. And so that's why I really don't recommend like having your directors always be your best friends. I would personally refrain from it. You could have maybe like some of your close friends, but like I don't recommend like putting like someone who like is super super close to you to always be your director, because people are very different when it comes to like actually making stuff happen versus being good friends. The next tip I have is to always pick people who have ideas for your initiative. Why? It's because ideas indicate interest. I actually wrote a LinkedIn post about this. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, just at Shivali Gulati. I just let me know you came from this workshop. And basically, I interviewed 15 co-executive directors in February. And although I had to reject 14 of them, the majority of the interview comprised of me talking about what projects would you want to implement, having more creative control of this organization. And, it really allowed me to like weed out some people automatically, because like, if they had like 3 ideas that were like not even developed at all, it's kind of like, if you can't even develop ideas for a 1-hour interview, how are you going to do it for like the next year? So definitely, making sure that you evaluate people based on their ideas and not necessarily like always their skill set, because when people have ideas for your organization, they're more inclined to work towards it and also like spend time on your organization. And as always, make sure you have quality or quantity of people. I could have had a 400-person team, but I have like 260-person team, which is still very big. But we obviously need every single person on the team because of how much we've expanded. And so definitely like think about the reason. Don't just have people there for the sake of like having people from like 15 countries. Like if those people from 15 countries aren't doing anything, like that's just like putting extra people on your team aren't doing anything. That's lowering your productivity rate. And so really think about that when you're evaluating team applications. My most important tip that I'm going to be giving you guys when it comes down to like leading a team and getting people to join your team is that you cannot do it all, and nor should you. The amount of times that I've seen nonprofits that are run by like one high school student, there are two problems that I've just noticed with these. The first one is micromanaging. Micromanaging is not okay. I was like severely micromanaged when I had to code a website for an organization. And basically I would like code every day and the person would just like kind of change like things behind my back. And I'm like, why aren't you communicating this to me that you are interested in like, me changing that? And by like doing things like, oh, if I just like do this for someone, it's going to save the overall time of it. That's not the right way to look at things. Because yes, although it'll save you time, you're taking away a learning experience from someone. And the way that you want to think about it is that if you're going to work with this person for the long term, whether it's 1 month, 2 months, 9 months, if you can't communicate your ideas to them in the beginning, the chances of them understanding the way that you communicate in 9 months is still very low because you're not allowing them to interpret that. So do not micromanage people. You're taking away a learning opportunity. I know that it's a lot easier for us to be like, oh yeah, let me just make the social media post. Like I know exactly how I want it. Talk with the director about it because there's going to be a point in your time where like you are not going to be able to work on a social media post and you're going to be like, oh my god, they have to make it now. So you might as well start communicating well enough so that you don't have to always be a part of like every single team because that's honestly unproductive for like your end. The second thing is burnout. Burnout is so real. I like faced like a week of burnout, like when I first started like interning this summer and like doing call drafts and doing presentations and running a nonprofit. It was a lot. And I think that a lot of organizations feel burnout, especially because of things like LinkedIn and Instagram, where you can compare the numbers, compare the followers, compare the amount of workshop attendees. It's so easy to get caught up in the numbers and be like, oh my God, I have to be working 24/7. I think especially with coronavirus happening right now, that like a lot of people feel the need to like always feel working. Like they feel like, oh my God, if I'm not working, like I'm not being productive. But taking care of yourself is a very proactive thing to do. So make sure that like you are dedicating time to yourself, or you're not on a Zoom screen all the time, or you're not working on this. And I think that like burnout is very, very real, and it's something that every single founder or director or even lead director faces. So now that you kind of know how to, cross a mission statement, get people to join your team, it's time to do the hard thing, which is actually getting things done. Believe it or not, a lot of people can do the first few steps I mentioned pretty easily. A lot of people can get 7 people to join their team and craft a mission statement and start their social media accounts. And that's great. But this is where a lot of nonprofits start to scale. And it's when you actually have to get work done. And here are my tips. But first, let's talk about what a founder/lead director is. A lot of failed nonprofits I've been a part of, their lead director basically just sat back, did nothing, and the directors did everything. That is not the way you want to go about this. Your lead director should be involved. You should be involved in your organization if you are founding something or leading something. Because the way that I think about it is that if you are not doing work for the organization and you quote unquote have the highest position, why should someone else do work? Right? And so it's really important to make sure that you are consistently pushing for your organization, you're continuously working on it. So for me as an executive director, although I have directors for every team, not only do I have to write assignments for every team, but I work on my own many passion projects. Like, we organized our first virtual conference with 2,000 attendees. We're doing a series of Slack AMAs with a really amazing organization that's going to be announced in August. I organize a lot of our takeovers like College Week, or like we did something in April called Empowerment Week, which is 21 days of 21 takeovers with 21 inspiring women in STEAM. Those are the type of projects that I love working on that allow the organization to grow. And so, although you won't necessarily always be working on like the teams that like exist, like definitely in the beginning you will, but you will get to a point where like you can work on your own passion projects for this organization. And so make sure that like you are not just sitting back and letting other people do the work, because that really is not going to end up well. The second tip I have is to treat your directors the same way that you treat yourself. And by that I mean that like you should not necessarily express that there is a clear hierarchy. Like they should know, yes, if I assign something, you should be doing it. However, I think that, something I really like to make clear whenever I'm onboarding a director is that, the same expectations I have myself, I will expect from you. If that means I'm not working on Genius the day before my 3 CC finals, that means you shouldn't either. If that means that I am traveling for 2 weeks in a place where Wi-Fi is pretty spotty, I'm going to need help managing my team. That is the way that you should look at this, because the people on your team are most likely going to be the same age, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger than you, pretty much the same age range. You recognize that they're human and you have to empathize with them. And that allows your directors to feel that, be like, wow, like I can ask this person for help when I need. And I think that, organizations and like working in organizations, leading organizations, even being a member, it's a very like insightful experience where you learn a lot. And so it's really important to make sure that your directors feel equal to you, because they're more inclined to like actually like talk to you if needed. Be realistic with your deadlines and work. Oh my God. The amount of times I've been on Instagram and I've seen a new nonprofit and they're like, this director position requires 27 hours a week. And I'm like, okay, maybe I might spend 27 hours a week on Girl Genius. Like I have a lot to do that week, but like for a director, that's a lot of work. And so please be realistic in your deadlines. So for our members of our team, they get assigned 1 to 1.5 hours of work per week. So they have Sunday to next Sunday to finish it. The directors, I give them around 30 minutes of work every day. 30 minutes. That's really not a lot of time. That's like SSR at school. For my co-executive director, we generally do 3 to 5 hours of work every day. That number varies and changes depending on the day and the things we have on hand. So for example, when we have like things like our issue coming out, that week before is going to be extremely, extremely hectic, but those numbers might fluctuate. And be realistic when it comes to it. Like I think that with coronavirus, a lot of people are like, oh, everyone has so much time. But I'm sure that all of you, like attending this hackathon, you made a use of the extra time you have. And like making sure that, the reason why I think we have such a high retention rate of like 90% of people who like are on our team continue to stay on. And it's because our work is, we don't assign a lot of work. We are consistent with what we assign. However, it's not like a dying amount of work. It's 1 hour of work per week. And that's pretty reasonable. Have a game plan for each week. Like I said before, if you don't have a vision for what you want your organization to do, it's going to set up for completely failure. So what I do with Gigi is I have a really big Google Doc, and I have basically a lot of like every week I create a new like table of contents, and there I put, the name of the director, and I split it up into individual tasks you need to accomplish this week and team things you need to assign to your team. And I generally make this information available like 2 to 3 days before they have to send out their team emails. So that way they can get started on it earlier. And this way they can bounce off ideas with me on like what they want their team to work on. Hold your directors accountable. This is extremely important. Again, pick people who can like actually turn in things on time. That's extremely important. And I think that accountability really comes down to like, again, making sure that you're realistically deadlines. Start off small and then gradually increase the work. If they can't even do 30 minutes of work a day, like that's a little questionable, right? So like make sure that you are holding them accountable. The way that I have been doing this is honestly been doing like a weekly check-in on Thursdays with my directors. I'm like, hey, what is your team been working on this week? How are you doing? And that allows me to know if the person is actually working on their team or not. The importance of extensions. Like, look, I think that, even with coronavirus happening right now, a lot of us can get burned out and have a lot going on. Like for me, I had 3 CC finals yesterday. And so, if I had something due yesterday, I would have asked for an extension because I was having a rough day. And so it's really important to make sure that, you give extensions if needed. So for us, we give 7-day deadlines and 3-day extensions, because sometimes you can just have a really bad week. But it's important to keep note that when you're giving extensions, you need to understand why they are asking for an extension. Like, don't just continue to give people extensions. Like, if they ask for the first time, it's okay. If they ask for the second time, it's be like, okay, let's try to avoid this. But if they ask another time, it's kind of like you want to take a step back and evaluate why they're asking for an extension. And so when I said have a game plan for every week, this is actually what's called a master spreadsheet at our organization. And it's basically the way that we organize all of our magazine content. And so this is for our last issue. It's not any confidential information. It's all on the internet. And so this just basically allowed me to look over it and be like, oh, I need to do this. Or, oh, this is all done. Great. So creating organization systems like this allow you to easily create your directors accountable and check up. Good leader tips. Give your members and directors creative control and magic will happen. I think that a lot of organizations remain stagnant because their lead directors believe that they are the best and that they are only going to make their ideas happen in reality. And I don't believe that's true. I think that, Gigi would be really, if I had only implemented my ideas, we would have a really strong social media presence and we would have virtual events and our social media and our marketing. We wouldn't have a YouTube channel. We wouldn't be active on LinkedIn. We wouldn't, do as many takeovers as we're doing. We wouldn't necessarily start Slack AMAs. Those are all ideas that were things that people on my team and my directors wanted to do. And I think that by creating an inclusive atmosphere where you can listen to your team and help make their ideas a reality, that just motivates someone to continue to work, right? It's like, I'm invested in your idea and I'm going to help you make it a reality. That motivates people to continue working and allows them to realize that their voice is actually being heard and recognized in the community. Now, I'm not saying that you have to give them entire power over this organization, but definitely take their opinions into account. And so one of the main ways that I give my directors creative control is that every 3 weeks we'll have a call, and these are just discussion-based calls. I'll literally send over slides with multiple questions and be like, okay guys, get ready to discuss these exact things on Saturday. And that's a way that I give my team creative control, because I try, I take notes from that and I try to make their ideas a reality. All of us bounce off these ideas together. And that comes down again with listening to your team. This is not a one-woman show. You are really as good as your team. If your foundation is not strong, you guys are not setting yourself up for success. Your initiative will never be their number one priority talk. This is a bit controversial, but it's so true. You have to understand that this will always be your baby, for the time being, as long as you run it. But that it's important to recognize that everyone else has other commitments, and so do you. Maybe you might spend your Friday nights working on this, but they might not. However, it's important to recognize that this is maybe their number 4 priority or number 5 priority, but this is still something that they're investing their time in. Don't feel like, oh my God, no one else cares about this organization as much as I do. Of course no one cares about it as much as you do. You're the founder. This is something that came from your passion, your desire to do that. And it's important to recognize that and realize that everyone around you genuinely wants to be there and is there to help you make this. Be consistent when assigning things. We have our every Sunday system that's been working pretty well. I think that a lot of organizations are really consistent in the first week, and then when week 2 comes, they just silence. Be consistent. It helps in actually making a team productive. And have a constant place to talk to. I personally like Discord. This is my announcements channel, and you can also use Slack if you don't necessarily need as many channels or organization. So let's talk about social media. I think social media is an integral part towards an organization because you can create a lot of impact in terms of the internal things that you're doing, but it really doesn't it's important to make sure that the world knows it too. So let's talk about how you can create an effective social media presence. Number 1 is quality over quantity of posts. You do not want to post more than 1 to 2 times per week, and make sure that you are active on all social media platforms. In the past week, we brought in 500 new LinkedIn followers. So we got from 200 to 700 LinkedIn followers. which is amazing because the nice thing about LinkedIn in comparison to Instagram is that if I like something, it goes to all of my connections. And as someone who has like 1,300 connections, if I like something, that goes to a pretty great amount of people. And so it's really important to make sure that you're active on different platforms, because other people don't just like check Instagram all the time, like believe it or not. I also think that it's important to follow and engage with similar orgs. Like, don't do follow for follow. I personally don't think that's a really smart decision because it doesn't create organic audiences and it's hard to bounce off from that. But engage with other content. A really good example of this is an organization on Instagram called intern_net. I remember when they first started, they used to repost all of our posts, they used to like all of our posts, they used to comment on them. I was like, let me check this organization out. Why are they so invested in me? And like, when they reached out to do a takeover, I was like, yes, because you've clearly shown that you've liked our content and that you're engaging with it. And that's made me take a notice of your content and realize that how much I like yours. The second thing I have are bio tips. This is in particular with Instagram because this is our largest platform. We actually have like 5,600 followers now. This is a little outdated photo. But yeah, let's break this down. Again, pretty classic tip, but make sure you have the same username everywhere and the same logo. It just makes branding a lot easier and for someone to be like, oh yeah, this is your account. Your bio should clearly tell your user what they are getting into. The bio is the first thing someone is going to read and look at. So as you can see, like right off the bat, someone knows that this is a STEM organization and that we have a magazine, we have videos, we have blogs, and we have an event. And then also it's really important to indicate new opportunities. So, after adding this line, we got like 6,000 more views on our link tree than we did before. And it was because we indicated that, hey, you should click this link to join our Slack, to join our mailing list, to join our team, to join our conference. Those are all things that people are like, ooh, I want to join a Slack community. Let me do that. So like, it incentivizes people to learn more about your organization. Which is why, again, I highly recommend getting a link tree. Linktree is amazing. It basically just allows you to put a bunch of links in a pretty like aesthetic format in your bio. And it's really, really nice because you can reorder it. So like something we do is like on the day a workshop is announced, we'll like put that at the top so people can easily like click that and find the link for that. And this is just like kind of a personal preference, but I think that adding custom Instagram like highlight covers and emojis to your bio just makes it so much more distinctive in comparison to like not. It just makes your brand a lot more distinctive as well. Feed tips. So for your feed, I recommend again posting 1 to 2 times per week. I have noticed that a lot of posts with art and photos get way more engagement, whether it's saves, reposts, likes, comment, you name it, reach, they all get more engagement. And it's because like a picture says 1,000 words. Like you're more inclined to like click on something that doesn't require you to like articulate anything, right? So always putting pictures, and pictures just make your feed generally look better as well. I think that when you're making posts, the main things you should keep in mind is that the user should always leave with new information. So that's why like things like how to tackle imposter syndrome, how to write a cold email, those things always do really, really well. And it's because with a few swipes, I can know how to send a really good LinkedIn cold DM within 2 minutes, rather than reading like an article, because that swiping motion is so easy. And so you really want to make sure that every single post is purposeful and it's not just for like the sake of adding a feed. Again, have a consistent color scheme that's distinct to you. Like anyone can look at these posts and be like, yeah, this is from Girl Genius. And that's a really important thing that we have done by establishing key fonts we use and key colors. You can also do this by getting Canva Pro. Since all of you are at a hackathon, I'm assuming you have a GitHub account. Take advantage of the Student Developer Pack and get Canva Pro for free. It's life-changing. This emoji, or like logo thing, is from Canva Pro. You can also use things like undraw.co for like photos as well. And lastly, think about whether or not you would even click on this. That is so important because like if you wouldn't even click on this, like who would then? right? Like you have to think about it in that way. So now that you've established your social media presence, it's time to really get your message out there still. And the way that you do this is through press. The best way, in my opinion, to get Instagram followers is to do Instagram takeovers. I've done over 50 takeovers that have reached like 46,000 Instagram users. And basically, like, this is a frame that I did for one of my takeovers, where someone asked me, like, how do you get internships in high school? And I put like a few tips. And I also indicated that we had an internship workshop that I do at a lot of hackathons that they could sign up for. And that basically allows, for me to share my own advice, but also for people to learn about my organization and be like, oh, wow, like they're having an internship workshop. Let me check them out. This is so cool. So that is something to keep in mind. What's an Instagram takeover? So an Instagram takeover is basically like when you go on someone's Instagram, like we're having an Instagram takeover right now on ours. So if you go on @GirlGeniusMag, you can see what a takeover does look like. But basically, if you can see my screen, so like people will generally like ask you a question. You'll introduce yourself, be like, what I do is like, hi, my name is Shivali. This is what I'm interested in. This is my nonprofit. These are the extracurriculars I'm involved in. You can ask me any questions about it. So like some common questions I get are like, how did you get an internship at Verizon? How did you start a nonprofit? How do you balance your time? How do you deal with imposter syndrome? How do you, create good business pitches to like win at competitions? Like those are common questions I get asked. And again, the same thing with like Instagram takeovers is like every single frame you put on the story should like definitely share like new information like your post. Does that make sense about what an Instagram takeover is, Morgan? I want to make sure that is clear. Okay, I'm going to assume it's a yes. The next thing, okay, cool, yay. Okay. The next thing that you should definitely do is getting interviewed or just highlighted. School boards and local news love nonprofits or organizations run by students. My school board has like recognized my organization like 2 times, and so basically, like it just allows like a lot of parents to get to know about your organization and like try to get their children involved, which is a pretty good strategy if you want to get people involved in your organization. But also like, when people Google your organization, those things do pop up. And so it's really important to start building that presence. I also think that post for post can sometimes be pretty effective. I only recommend doing that if the person who's asking you to repost like an actual post or even a repost like a story, their demographic should be very, very similar to yours. Or like, like the common thing that we do is like we'll repost something if it's STEM related. So like, like a hackathon advertisement, we'll do that. That's something that people can do. If it's like something that's like about writing but it has nothing to do with STEM, we're less inclined to do it because that's not what people follow us for, right? Like in our bio it's clear we talk about STEM stuff. So definitely keep that in mind when you're doing post for post. And most importantly, just try to get your organization out there. I know it's pretty hard, but honestly, posting on things like LinkedIn about your organization has really, really helped us. Like I usually just post about the organization on my LinkedIn. Like one of my posts has like 200 likes because I just posted about our conference. It's like, hey guys, Gigi's running our first conference, and that like went to so many people. And so like definitely like integrating it as a part of your social brand is really, really important towards getting your organization out there. I also recommend, if you have some valuable information to offer, thinking at things like hackathons, podcasts at conferences or panels. Like I did a panel last week on like the secrets of like successful nonprofits. So, and I did like a podcast last week too. Partnerships. This is another great way to get your organization out there. I personally think you should not start partnerships until you have a tangible like medium. So with that, I mean like our first partnership was with Built by Girls, which has like 52,000 followers on Instagram. And I think the reason why Built by Girls went with us was because we sent them a copy of our magazine that was going to be released, and they really liked what they saw. So, And like we also did a partnership with Woo Grammar, which is a nonprofit that's like in collaboration with Anita B now. And we did like a mini YouTube series with them. And I think the reason why they were incentivized by that is because we sent them our YouTube channel link. And that allowed them to see like the content we've already produced and kind of understand what they're getting into. And so make sure that you have something that is, tangible to an extent. So maybe it's like, a tutoring program you started or a series of workshops. Those things make people a lot more inclined towards investing into your organization. So when you're DMing people to do an Instagram takeover or you're trying to just like partner with them, here's the general format that I like to follow. The first sentence should just be, what is your org and what is your impact? Straight out the gate. Like introduce yourself, obviously in the first sentence, but like you want to make sure you include your impact because it's a lot more appealing for people to like be like, wow, this organization reaches so many people. I should think of them. I'm thinking about partnering with them. And how do you want to collab? This is super, super important. Make it very, very clear on how you want to collaborate. Again, I think that, we get DMs every day asking if we can partner. And like, I personally like, yeah, you can ask me a question. You can ask in the chat or you can say it out loud. I'm okay with either. Since what age and why did you start with this? I started this when I was 16. I'm 17 and a half now. I started this in December of 2018. And if you came a little bit later, I started this just because I really wanted to create a platform where girls could work together on like passion projects. And so, yeah, I hope that is a brief summary of answers your question. But when you're emailing people for partnerships, you want to make sure that you are specific as possible. So include links to your social media accounts, include links to your YouTube channel, all of those things. Like something we have been doing is like including the link to our event report because that shows the extent to which of like people we've impacted as well. Partnerships are really quality or quantity. It doesn't matter if you've partnered with 50 student-run organizations if all of them have 10 followers. Like, like that is not very valuable. And it shows that, your partnerships, they're not very, like, I would say, like, beneficial because you're just partnering with so many organizations. You want to make sure that every partnership has a purpose. Most importantly, make sure your organization values align with theirs. Like if they're, for us, what we look for is STEM and female empowerment. If they do at least one of those, they can qualify towards being one of our partners and we'll further consider it. But if they don't do either of those, then it's like your demographic doesn't match mine, and neither of us are going to benefit from this. And so really it's okay to say no to partnerships if like, someone is asking you to partner with your medicine organization, but they're like into theater. Like those are completely different things. And also with partnerships, make sure to start off with smaller organizations and work your way up. It definitely helps. The 501c3 stuff. So let's talk about it. So 501c3 status, basically the biggest benefit, like I mentioned in the next slide, is that you have tax deductible status. So that just motivates a lot of people to sponsor you. Girl Genius did not get fiscally sponsored, which I'll explain in a bit, until May of 2020. We've been an organization since December of 2018. And the reason why I did this was because we did not need money until now. And so it's very important that you only even think about getting registered independently or fiscally sponsored if you 100% need money to make your own organization succeed. And it's always, like, without a doubt, your impact over your organization title any day of the week. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 501c3 if you haven't impacted any people. Like, you wasted $3,000. So like focus on your impact, not necessarily whether or not you're a 501c3. Because registering independently can be very, very expensive and it's tedious to file. And I know way too many people who have hired attorneys to help them. I also got on the call with like Zach Wada, who's like the founder of Hack Club, which is like an amazing organization. You guys should totally join their Slack. And he said that unless your nonprofit is earning like $25,000 and higher, like per year, you should not be independently registered. And like as someone who's making $0, like at the beginning, I was like, okay, so I have to go down the fiscal sponsor. So what is a fiscal sponsor? A fiscal sponsor is basically an overarching nonprofit that fiscally sponsors you. This means that you get to be a 501c3, you get all of the benefits of it without registering independently. Now, what is the return for them? They take 7% of your revenue. However, 7% is nothing because, in California it can cost like up to $3,000 to register. And, if they're taking 7% of $1,000 of the money we have sitting in right now, like that's not $3,000, and it will take a very long time for us to even surpass that. And so, but getting fiscally sponsored is also a really great thing because there's a lot of internal connections that you can leverage, and just like for some of us who like haven't worked with banks before, like credit cards, they just make that process so much easier as well. So I really recommend looking into a fiscal sponsor like Hack Club, Bank, Hack Plus, or Ignite Banks. What are the benefits of getting a 501c3 status? The main ones, especially are tax exempt. People are more inclined to donate to you. However, I think that again, if you want a donation, you have to have made some sort of impact before it's getting that money. You can also get donations from grocery stores. A lot of grocery stores, like, before coronavirus happened, basically allowed you to be like, call them and be like, hey, I'm a 501c3. And they'll be like, oh, we'll give you a $50 in-kind donation for it. So that's really nice. You can also get some free G Suite, which is super, super amazing. And, like some occasional coupons, like we got Canva Pro for free for our entire team. For raising money, I strongly recommend like cold emailing and creating a really strong sponsorship prospectus. But you can also do things like selling merch, start a GoFundMe, and offer like services at a really low cost. Overall, I just think that 501c3 status is not 100% necessary towards making a successful organization, because I don't think that every organization needs money to like survive. Like I run like a coding like student-run organization where we teach kids how to code in California, and that doesn't require a single dollar. Like it really doesn't. And it's because, like a lot of schools will provide the projector and like a classroom and like a Chromebook cart. And so registering that or even getting it fiscally sponsored is like completely unnecessary, because we really wouldn't do it a lot with the money. And so really think about it before you think about like even going down the 501c3 fiscal sponsor route. And yeah, so that was my presentation. Thank you guys so much for coming. You guys can follow Girl Genius if you liked this workshop at Girl Genius Mag. We have workshops on how to get internships in college, leading a team. We're also having, like a lot of Slack AMAs with a lot of cool people. As a sneak peek, if you guys have ever used like rebel.it, which is like a common hackathon IDE, we're going to be having the co-founder of that speak really soon. We have a lot of like tech workshops coming up, like intro to web development, intro to iOS development. If you have any questions, you can email me at shivali@girlgeniusmag.tech. Yes, I love Rebel. Rebel is amazing. I'm a total Rebel stan. But yeah, I will be reserving like the next like 5 minutes to 10 minutes on like any questions that you guys have in particular. If not, you can just email me, or my Instagram is, I'll just put it in the chat, Shivali Galati _ I generally respond to email faster. However, if it's just like a really small, simple question, you can just DM me there if it's easier for you. But yeah, I'll just be open to questions. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can leave them in the chat. But if not, you can always email me or DM me. All of my links are in the Discord for the Flame the Flare Hacks. It's my 501c3 channel. So it's called 501c3 Workshop Questions. And in there, I just have like my Instagram, my email, and if you want to schedule a call with me, I also have the links to that there too. So yeah, I'll just wait like 1 more minute for questions, and if not, do you plan on extending your nonprofit to less developed countries in the future? So we have reached around like 75 countries, primarily through our virtual events. However, when coronavirus ends, we definitely want to start having, events like networking sessions in the Bay Area and slowly expand after that. But that definitely just depends on like the state of the world um, at the moment. So yeah. Any other questions? I've also, like intern at Verizon. I'm doing that this summer. I did research at ASU in May. I did a web development internship as well. So if you guys have any questions about that or like want me to look at your resume, you can totally email me or like DM me asking. I'd be totally down to help you. I think that especially during this time, it's important to help everyone. But yeah, I think that that's all of the questions. So thank you guys so much for coming to the workshop. Have a nice day. Bye, guys.